because they don't even know how to shoot anyone with a belt.
Russian soldiers from the 810th Separate Guards Marine Brigade, Maxim Kuznetsov, are complaining about the difficulties in communicating with the military from North Korea in the Kursk region. By the way, it was that brigade that was hit by a precision strike from the Ukrainian Defense Forces just a few days before the Ukrainian counteroffensive. It hit the command and control center. It is in the unit of the 810th Marine Brigade and the 76th Airborne Division that North Korean servicemen are integrated.
They just don't understand anything at all. There were cases when they pointed their weapons in the dark. You go hop up and say, "Dragon." I am a dragon, and I counted. Who can remove it?
The incident where a North Korean soldier shot 3 Russians who tried to block the evacuation of wounded North Korean soldiers shows that even Kim Jong-un's own slaves are starting to understand their fate. For the Russian army, they are cannon fodder. Shows that even Kim Jong-un's own slaves are starting to understand their fate. For the Russian army, they are cannon fodder. The tactic of blocking units is being used. Russian units are located in the rear of the advancing North Korean units. That's why such serious loss figures were revealed by Zelensky, and among the Russian soldiers as a result of so-called friendly fire, but also accordingly. Among the North Korean soldiers who are caught between 2 fires.
During the Kursk operation, the enemy has already lost more than 38,000 of its soldiers. Only in this one direction. Of those, about 15,000 are irretrievable. The Russians have redeployed their strong units to Kursk. There are soldiers from North Korea involved.
Russian public pages and military correspondents acknowledge the catastrophic losses for the Russian side in personnel and equipment. They complain that, unlike the Russian columns, the Ukrainian mechanized units were covered by electronic warfare systems. This minimized the possibility of striking Ukrainian columns using FPV drones. Only fiber optic drones could operate. The Ukrainian counteroffensive in Kursk once again caught the Russian side completely by surprise. It started almost simultaneously with Russia's attempt to break through Ukraine's defenses near Maloloknia. The counteroffensive seems to have been in preparation for more than 1 month, as preventive strikes were carried out on military infrastructure within the territory of the Russian Federation.
In NATO's classification, this tactic is used by the Ukrainian intelligence community and the armed forces of Ukraine. It's called a cascading nature of operation planning. So, we're talking about the first stage, which involves strikes on warehouses accumulating ammunition, points of permanent temporary deployment of personnel, and so on, of the SBU warehouses. And then accordingly the nature of the Ukrainian counteroffensive itself.
Ukraine is advancing simultaneously in 3 directions. Experts explain that it creates the effect of an umbrella. The first is in the direction of Berdina-Novosotnitsky. The second direction is the Koronevsky district of the Kursk region, the settlement of Leonidovo, and the intensification of hostilities in the area of Pushkarnoye.
Russian military team is viewing the Ukrainian strike as a diversionary tactic. It doesn't rule out expanding the Ukrainian armed forces' presence in other Russian Federation areas. It should be viewed as a diversionary maneuver. It does not rule out the possibility of expanding the presence of the Ukrainian armed forces through other subjects of the Russian Federation, namely the Bryansk and Belgorod regions. And this is already telling. In other words, the Russian command is well aware of the possible scenarios for the further development of events. And this allows to block the redeployment of operational reserves of the Russian command directly into the combat zone on the territory of Ukraine. From a military standpoint, this is already a significant positive aspect of conducting the counteroffensive operation. Well, accordingly, expansion of the area of presence.
The conduct of the Kursk offensive operation helps Ukraine hold other sections of the front. After the January offensive, the Russian command found itself facing a dilemma. To withdraw units from the front lines in Ukraine, ease the pressure on the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine, or risk losing territory in the Kursk, possibly Bryansk and Belgorod regions. Preliminary information is already available about the redeployment of Russian military units, but we should wait for the official information from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
The first Sunday of 2025 was an unpleasant surprise for Putin. The USSR launched a new offensive in the Kursk region. This was confirmed by official sources in Russia.
On January 5th, around 9 a.m. Moscow time, an effort was made to stop the advance of Russian troops in the Kursk direction. The enemy launched a counterattack by an assault group. consisting of 2 tanks, a mine-clearing vehicle, and 12 armored fighting vehicles with troops heading towards the Berden hamlet. The artillery and aviation of the North Troop Grouping dealt a blow to the assault group of the Ukrainian armed forces. 2 tanks, a mine-clearing vehicle, and 7 armored fighting vehicles were destroyed. The operation to eliminate the formations of the Ukrainian armed forces continues.
As always, the enemy is destroyed, everything is under control, there are no losses. But the residents of the Kursk region have a different opinion. Right after the breakthrough in the USSR, another appeal from the residents of the Kursk region to the Tsar.
Dear Vladimir Putin, finally hear us. We want our children to see a peaceful sky and not hear constant noise. Signal. A flirtatious danger. We have become homeless. Some of our fellow villagers died. Who is missing? Since the evacuation was not announced and not everyone managed to leave,
There was no information from the Ukrainian armed forces about an offensive in the Kursk direction. The only one who addressed the situation was the head of the president's office, Andrei Yermak.
Kursk region. Good news. Russia is getting what it deserves.
There was even information that possibly the Ukrainian armed forces would advance towards the Kursk nuclear power plant. But still quite far from it. And such an operation is too dangerous.
Such goals are already a political decision. In general, war is built on political decisions, and the military carries them out. And politics shouldn't interfere with military actions. If we talk about the nuclear power plant as a whole, in the context of the battlefield, it is not the best military target. It is more of a political object.
Most likely active actions. The Ukrainian army in the Kursk region is focused on improving its positions and probing the enemy.
Not a strong, powerful counteroffensive, but a tactical adjustment. They find areas to strengthen and attack. It looks more like an improvement of tactical positions. They see a section where they can enhance their positions and go on the attack to push back. Will this develop into a larger counteroffensive? It's hard to say. If the enemy's front collapses, if our forces see any opportunity, they might expand further. But right now, it looks like an improvement of tactical positions. If the enemy's front collapses, if our forces see any opportunity, they might expand further. But right now, it looks like an improvement of tactical positions.
Here's what the German publication Spiegel says about the new offensive in the Ukrainian armed forces.
The Ukrainian armed forces unexpectedly launched an offensive in the western Russian region of Kursk. Messages from Russian military bloggers who support Moscow's war in Ukraine, but often criticize its failures, suggest that the recent Ukrainian attack has forced Russian troops to switch to a defensive posture. But they often criticize its failures, suggest that the latest Ukrainian attack forced Russian troops to switch to a defensive posture. Accordingly, there were artillery and small arms battles, and Ukraine used Western armored vehicles to transport a large number of infantry.
And already on Monday morning, Secretary of State Antony Blinken stated that the White House is also aware of the actions in the Kursk region. And what? A strong position of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region will be crucial in any future negotiations.
Their position in Kursk is important because it will definitely be taken into account in any negotiations that may take place in the coming year.
Sooner or later, Ukraine will sit down at the negotiating table. And the Kursk region is definitely a trump card. So the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces in that direction need to be expanded and strengthened.